Hi folks! Today I wanted to show you some of the basic tools in Adobe Illustrator for creating vector graphics. So let's get started. So we're going to start by opening up Illustrator, and I'm using the latest version of Illustrator, but this should work in any of the versions from like CS1 up, so you should be fine. I'm going to specify that this is in inches, and we'll just do an 8.5 by 11 page. We'll go with landscape, because why not? We're going to be creating a landscape scene. So create that, and now that's going to pop up. Next, we're going to use mostly the tools on the left here on the toolbar, and the top 5 are really where we're going to be working on. This is the selection tool, and that's really important for selecting objects. And this is the creating different shapes, or the shape tool. And you have a few different objects. If you hold your mouse over, you can choose from a few different options. We're going to start by creating a rectangle with the shape tool. And you click and drag to create your rectangle. And we're going to make it long. This is going to be a frame for where we want to put our artwork. And the width and height, I'm going to unlock the width and height and set it to 7 wide by 3 high. So we can actually specify the exact width and height. Now that we have our frame, why don't we go with maybe an island theme? So we have some things underwater, some things over water. Let's try that. So then the next tool we're going to use, and for most of this we're going to use the pen tool, because Illustrator, you might be tempted to use the brush to draw your designs, and that is from going from Photoshop. You might be more tempted to like color in things using the brush, but that's not how Illustrator is powerful. Illustrator is powerful when you use the pen and shape tools. So that's what we got to start learning. Now with the pen tool, we're going to create a mountain scene. So I'm going to just simply click to create some mountains, and I just keep clicking. Make 3 mountains. Then I press escape and I'm done. Now I switch back to my selection tool, and I can move the mountains wherever I want. And I can also move the background panel wherever I want, the background plate. So now I've created my mountains. I can also control the size of the mountains. So the size of the lines, I mean. To do that, I need to adjust the stroke, which is called so all the lines have a stroke, and I want to change that. Increase the value of the stroke will increase how thick the lines are. So let's set it to, let's go with 6 point. Nice and big. Now another thing we can do with these mountains is we can adjust each individual mountain by using the direct selection tool. So if I click on the direct selection tool and select a single point on the mountain, I can change it. This is because it's parametric. The mountains are being created using math, so I don't have to redraw them. If I want to make a change, I can just tweak them like this. So we can have one high mountain on the left and a high mountain on the right, and then a shorter mountain in the middle. Now, let's have a sun behind. That would be nice. So we have to go here, switch to the ellipse tool, and with the ellipse tool, we're going to make a circle. And to make a perfect circle, it's not going to want to do it by default. You have to hold shift, and then that will give you a perfect circle. And there we go. However, I don't want the outline, I want the inside of it. So to do that, I have to go down to my toolbar again, and if I switch the stroke and the infill, it'll actually infill instead of outline. So the one on the left is fill, and the one on the right is stroke. So I'm controlling both of them. Now I could give it a stroke and an infill. So if I wanted to have it be, I'll increase this. If I wanted to have an outline and a fill color, I could do that as well. But in this case, I don't. So I'm going to press this X, or the none, and then I'm going to click on this, and I want to specify a color. So I can double click this and it'll bring up a color picker. I could also select it here, but I'll use a color picker to find a nice bright yellow. And there we go. Now we have our sun. And why don't we try to color the mountains while we're at it? So I'm going to go here. I'm going to use the double click the stroke, and I'm going to change it to maybe like a brown. There. So now we have the mountains and we have a sun. That's great. So now let's get a bit more fancy with our stuff. So I'm going to switch back to the pen tool, and I'm going to get my artwork ready first. I'm going to get my palette ready. So this I'm going to do actually I'm going to do no stroke, and then I'm going to fill this with green. And we're going to create a mountain here, here, and here. These mountains are actually going to be more like hills, like rolling hills. How do we do that? Well, first we're going to click. Then we do the same thing again. We make a mountain. So we're going to click, but this time I drag outwards, and it's going to start curving that hill. Then I go down, and I click and drag again. Go up, click and drag. Go down, click and drag. Go up. And the last one, I'm just going to click. Done. Then I press escape. So now I've created hills. These hills don't have a stroke, and they are nice and smooth. Now, what about the water? How do we do that? We're going to create water because this is going to be an island where there's a boat as well. So to do the water, we basically do the opposite of what we just did. I'm going to switch to stroke, and then I'm going to change the color to a blue. And then I'm going to change this to white so that it fills in the things that aren't visible. Then I click, and 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 I'm going to show you a trick after. So I click this, I'm just going to make a zigzag pattern. Okay, then press escape. So now we've made a zigzag pattern. We can also adjust them so that they're all roughly the same height. Okay. Then we use this and switch to anchor point tool, or in older versions it's called the convert anchor point tool. Then what we do is we click every drop, not the rising ones, but the falls, and you click and drag. And what I do is I hold shift. I hold shift to make it flat. I drag to the right. If I drag to the left, it does this, which we don't want. So, and if you screw it up, you might have to do it again and click it once to undo. There. Ooh, maybe I need to zoom in a little bit. There, 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 there. I will zoom in slightly so we can see it better. So, there we go. And so now with all of that, I have this beautiful rolling wave. And we're going to tweak some settings on the stroke. So I'm going to increase the stroke size to be, let's go with 10 point. It's nice and thick. So go up. Wow. But then you'll notice that when we make it so big, some of these edges go real high. They have some problems. So in order to adjust that, we need to click the stroke drop-down menu. If we click on the word, it opens up some settings, and we can tell it to have rounded caps and rounded corners. That allows all of the edges to be nice and smooth. So it's a little bit more artistic. Now, you can get creative with your water. Remember, you can use the direct select tool. If you click, then you click on a point. You can edit it. So you can rearrange the water, rise it in certain spots so that it hides the mountain. kind of hiding the edges. There. So that is a nice design. We have water, a mountain, hills, and a sun. But we're not done yet. The problem is we ran out of space. What do? I want to add more. Well, it's vectored, so we can select all of it. This, 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 this. We can scale it down. We can scale it to whatever actual size we want and make more room. So I'm going to go maybe like this. I'm going to scale my water. I'm going to stretch my water so it goes across the whole thing. Like this. And then I want to make a fish and a boat. So how do we do that? Well, first the fish is going to be an ellipse. And we'll switch back to black. Okay. And the ellipse is just going to be this shape. All right. And we'll set it to 9 point. Then, so that's a nice fish. Then, from there, we're going to make a tail for the fish. How do we do that? Well, we switch back to our pen tool, and we click here, click here, click here, and then here. That ends the shape. It creates a full shape. But we still have that problem with the tail being too big. So what we're going to do is go back. We're going to select that, go back to stroke, and do rounded and rounded again. So it's nice and smooth. And we can edit the points of the tail to make it a little bit smaller. So there we go. We have our fish. And the last thing we're going to do is make a boat. So we're going to take the rectangle tool and we'll put a boat here. And this is going to have a 5-point stroke. And rounded or not is fine. You can have rounded corners or not rounded corners, but I want you to do 2 colors of brown for this, just so that it looks a little bit nicer. So we have 1 color of brown there, and then we'll go with like a deeper color of brown like that. And then here's the tricky part. I want you to switch to the direct selection tool, go to one of the anchor points, and then use the arrow key and press to the right. Like this. Then I want you to do the same thing in the other way with this one, to the left. So now you've created a tapered edge on both sides. Then we have to create a mast. So the mast is actually going to just be a line segment. So create a line segment, go up like this, and same size, so it all lines up with everything that we've already created, and we can move it forward a little bit. Then the last thing is a sail. So to create the sail, let's create, there's a lot of ways to do it, but let's do it this way. So create a basic shape, 1-point stroke. We drag like this, and now there's a sail, but you're like, well, that doesn't look very good. So why don't we go over here, select this point, the corner, and press delete. We can actually delete the point, and now it's created a triangle. But there's one final step, and that's the background. So we can see the sail can pop out a little bit better. And you could probably move it here so it so it lines up. Now let's select the entire thing. Let's create a background. So we're gonna go to the color here, and let's give it maybe a light blue color. Nice. And now the sail really pops. Now the other thing we might have to do is change this to be the same light blue, or we could remove the fill. So we could get rid of this like that. That looks better. And so we have the boat, we have the fish, and we have everything else, and this is looking great. So you've learned how to use the pen tool, how to create and move different shapes, how to scale things so you can make things bigger or smaller. You can move things around. One thing I didn't talk about is copying things. So what if you want more than one fish? So you can actually select the tail and body of the fish. Control C, Control V, and now you have another fish, and now you have another fish. And we can have the fish be different sizes. We can spin them around, so one is going this way. We could have this one be kind of swimming down a little bit, make him a bit smaller. We have all sorts of things. But one thing you might notice is if I scale this, the stroke size stays the same. So you might want to adjust your stroke for this representing the size of the fish. So if the fish is a bit smaller, we make the stroke a little bit smaller to match. That probably makes a little bit more sense, doesn't it? So now we have extra fish. We have quite beautiful little scene. And the last thing is using the type tool. You could put your name at the top. So you could say, put your name, and you can also choose a font. So you can go here and choose a nice font. And let's go with 18 point. So let's crank that up a bit. There. And let's move the mountain down slightly. And that's it. That's everything that I wanted to cover today on basics of vector graphics. Thanks again for stopping by. You're great. Have an awesome day.